Hey, welcome to the Thriving Minds podcast with your host, Walter Parada, where we strive to provide you with empowering talks so you can live to thrive. In today's episode, we'll be talking about handling yourself during rough times. So throughout our lives, we're all going to face difficult moments and times where it just seems insurmountable, and we question, how did things go wrong? How did it get to this point? During times like this, there's a tendency to find blame or fault on what led to the circumstances that we're in. Things like blaming others for how things were playing out, or blaming ourselves where we beat ourselves up to the point of, how could I have let this happen? This phase is natural because we need to reason and try to comprehend what's going on. Many times the shock of what we did not anticipate, or maybe even if we did anticipate it, it still stings to go through those difficult moments. It can feel as though things are just crumbling all around us, and it makes us question what we're doing that shakes our confidence and how we can get through it. That comfort of stability that we've grown accustomed to can lead us into a brutal surprise when that stability is no longer there, because it is something that we've relied on, where we build confidence on it. Similar to when an earthquake happens and it structurally changes the ground that the house is built on, where it starts to form cracks in the foundation, and a common assumption is, when's the house going to fall down? This makes us lose confidence in that house, that it's safe to live in, where we're constantly anticipating, when is it all going to just start to cave in? We want to avoid the potential harm that it may cause. And if it does fall, it's almost as if that hope and that belief we had where we lived our daily lives is taken from us. And if we remember instinctively, we're wired to avoid losing something because it causes a pain stronger than the pleasure of what we gain. So we would rather avoid losing something at the cost of gaining something else. And during these times where you find yourself going through a rough period, or that you're going through one now, it's going to be important to try to put things into perspective and maintain your composure. This is going to help you manage your emotions from taking over and leading to irrational and bad decisions. And yes, it will be difficult when we go through these times of having our world rocked, but you got to find a way that you can process what you're going through and work through it to come out for the better. There are going to come those times where you feel like giving up because things look very bleak and hopeless, and you don't see what the next step to take is. That it could even possibly feel that all that you worked for was a waste of time and effort. But the moment that we feel like that, we got to remember that it's only a moment in time, and it shouldn't overtake all the effort that you put in going forward. You got to find a way not to get lost in the trees, that you forget to see the forest, where a few instances make up the life that you think you're living. Bad days are part of living, and a few of them, or even a number of them, should not convince us that we have a bad life. There are many joyous moments that we all experience, but they become clouded where the days no longer appear bright. Sometimes remembering those joyous moments can hurt to replay them, as it means that making future ones will not be the same. While they won't be the same joyous moments, they're going to change and evolve as you do the same. The constant thing that we will all experience is change. So the better that we can come to understand this, the better equipped we are at embracing the future, instead of so desperately clinging to the past. The past gives us a level of comfort because it reverts to the things that we've grown fond of, or at least familiar to, but becoming too dependent on it leaves little room to become adaptable. That makes it very difficult in times of uncertainty, especially during these tough times. This backwards facing perspective leaves little room to anticipate what is coming, which tends to be harder to accept when change occurs. Many times it comes full force that leaves little room to adapt to it. Yes, tough times are hard to navigate through, but resisting change will make it even more difficult to manage. It keeps us dwelling on what was lost and trying to get back to what it once was. If we take a look at something as simple as the cost of living, we all understand that with each year and the decades pass, the cost of living is going to increase. So when we say, I remember 10 years ago when gas was at this amount, now it's this much higher, or eggs this amount, and now it's this much higher. But we all knew that the cost of living is going to arise. So instead of looking backwards, get out there and anticipate it. So having that adaptability by accepting and looking towards the future better prepares you for those rough times. For one, embracing what is yet to come immediately acclimates you to uncertainty, because no matter how much you anticipate things happening, there is a level of unknown that can play out. It's having an idea of things that are likely to happen and less likely to happen, but it's in your line of thinking that makes you aware of the scenarios that could play out. This gets you to have general plans for different things that could play out, and this allows for a smoother transition. With knowing that uncertainty will be present, it means that difficult times will come along with it, and when you're in this mental frame of mind, you can choose to find solutions for these times as opposed to denying what's going on. It almost frees up your mind to take on the challenges that are yet to come. So let's dive into how we can transition from resisting change to embracing it so we can better handle ourselves during these rough periods that we're all going to face. One of the first things that can help you better during these difficult times is to process what you're going through. Give yourself the time and the space to think through what you've been through and what it means now and going forward. This is obviously going to be uncomfortable and hard to get through, but the better you can deal with it, the more mental weight will be shed so you can move forward with great agility. Find what works for you to process your thoughts and emotions by writing it out, talking to yourself, or talking to someone you trust, taking a walk, working out, or even screaming it out privately in a healthy manner. Give yourself the ability to unload mentally and emotionally to free you up from that weight that you're carrying. This is the moment to be vulnerable, and there's no need to try to prove how strong or okay you are. You want to make sure to be honest with yourself by acknowledging all the things that hurt to know, but not only focusing on the less than ideal things, but also the good things that were a part of what you've been through. And as you go through this, you got to make sure to be patient with yourself, as there's no specific timetable on when to move on from the things or getting over them. This can be a slow process at times where the day-to-day you might not see that much progress that you're making, or even week to week, but over a period of time, things can start to get better working through that hurt that you're going through. There are going to be those days where you feel great and how far you've come, but there's also going to be those days where you feel like you're stagnant or even going backwards, and just know that this is part of the cycle of processing things. They need time to expand and contract to eventually settle into the position that needs to. In this time, make sure to be constructive about where you're looking to understand what was learned, what was gained from the experience that you've gone through and that you're currently going through. See how you can apply this going forward by looking beyond just right now and how you're feeling. Now, I know this is going to be a difficult thing to do, but focus your energy where you could have been and done better. Find out what prevented or distracted you from doing so without looking to blame or find fault. Sometimes things just happen, and our lack of understanding on how to do things could have been very much what led to the circumstances that we're going through. Things like being let go from a job, failing miserably at that big goal that you're working towards, or having fallouts with the people in your life. These are all things that can shake the confidence we have within ourselves, and sometimes this is done to actually wake us up on where we need to focus our effort to so we can be better at. Instead of focusing on that my boss didn't like me, so that's why he fired me, is something that's not going to serve you well going forward. So instead, reflect and see what exactly you fell short in. We tend to over or underestimate our abilities, which makes it a little bit more difficult to gauge what went wrong. When we overestimate ourselves, generally it's being critical of the factors outside of our control. And when we underestimate ourselves, we are too hard on ourselves. There are things outside of our control that can inhibit us, but we need to find a way around it. The things within our control are extremely crucial to the positions we find ourselves in because we put ourselves there. By knowing the things within your control and focusing your energy on it, you're setting yourself up to find solutions. This helps you to make progress from the difficult times that you're facing. The hurt and the pain that we all face is there to tell us something needs to change, and it's up to us to figure out what that is. The goal should not be to avoid pain at all times, but to recognize the cause of it and understand why is it occurring. To help you in times of need, look to the high quality people in your life that care for you, that are willing to listen and help you work through what you're going through. Their presence and support helps us to know that we are not alone in what we're going through, which can relieve some of that pressure we're experiencing. Those relationships that you form will be key to uplifting you when you feel lost, confused, or even deserted. Having these people to just share how you're feeling can be awkward or even appear weak at first, but you're developing a level of humility that will generate great wisdom. All we need is someone willing to listen to us to better understand ourselves and what we're going through. So while family members, friends, and concerned associates may offer advice, ultimately it's in your best interest to find what best fits you. They're all seeing things from their own perspective, and it can be helpful to take bits and pieces of what they offer, but they're not seeing and experiencing what you are, so it's going to be vital that you follow your own path. You'll be much happier with yourself when you come up with the decisions on your own, as opposed to just following what others tell you. We need to be able to trust ourselves by tuning out what others want us to do and identify what we want of ourselves and understanding why we want that. This clearly sets what each of us is eventually working towards. It's going to be very important not to make emotional decisions based on those low points that you're experiencing, because eventually you'll get out of it. These trying times can cloud us from thinking that we have options. So we'll be more defensive and react into the moment we're in. Just because you got fired from that job doesn't mean it's the end of your career. Maybe it might be the start of something else, and you just needed a wake-up call to help you realize that. Or that goal that you fell short of reaching is not the end of your journey, but merely an obstacle in your path to what you're working towards. We got to remind ourselves that each of us are a work in progress, and knowing this helps us understand that the situations we're in and what we've done are not final states unless that's what we decide for ourselves. We are actually all in a fluid state, having the ability to change, adapt, transform, and evolve into much more if we choose that. So that thinking of I'm a failure or a loser because of the rough period that I'm going through is only self-doubt that arises because it wants me to avoid any further pain. And if I give into that self-doubt, I'm ultimately making the choice of settling for what is easy, and what is easy is mediocre. The more things chosen based on ease, the more mediocrity will be present. Making decisions based on this can leave an unsatisfied feeling to the path that was chosen. It can make us question what I could have done if only I were to have worked through those difficult moments. Many times, pain is only temporary, and by choosing to find a way forward, you will be more happy and confident in who you are. The better that you can handle yourself during these rough times, the greater composure you have going forward when they arise again. Once you're able to properly process your thoughts and your emotions during these low points and avoid any rash decisions, you can start to identify ultimately what you want. With a level head, you can better see and rationalize things on how to make them work. This positions you much better so you can thrive because you're no longer being held back from what happened and are now focused on moving forward with what you gained from your experiences. A great way to tell that you're ready to move forward with what you want is where you're no longer dwelling on what was lost or what happened and are now more focused on what is yet to come. That the future excites you and you're restless about making it happen. It can feel scary as there still is going to be many uncertainties, but that drive to move you forward becomes so much more compelling than the fear of being hurt. This shows a high level of bravery because it means choosing to go in the heat of the fire at the risk of getting burned. It's taking action in spite of fear, not the absence of it. This is going to add another layer of strength and determination that will be needed when you face resistance. These tough times that we all experience are opportunities to fuel our growth by being willing to overcome them. Strength is drawn from when we are tested and not when we are rested. Just like when we work out through lifting weights or running long distances, it's an opportunity to build muscle. First, that muscle needs to be stressed through resistance, and the more you push yourself, the more resistance you apply that can lead to building more muscle. This resistance will cause trauma to your muscles, and the cells in your fibers repair the damage that was caused, and that muscle fibers increase in size that leads to bigger muscles over time. Having the proper rest for your muscles with the right amount of nutrition allows them to develop properly. This concept can translate into our minds and our emotions, where through enough resistance, trauma is caused that allows them to be repaired, which increases over time. So if our thinking, our expectations, our resilience are stressed enough, we will experience defeat, disappointment, and heartache that has the opportunity to build us up further with enough time and support to recover in between. What this leads to is strengthening our character and ultimately who we are. We just need to remind ourselves that we can come out better for it on the other side. I know this is a little bit insensitive, but these rough periods that we all face can be seen as a workout or a training program for our personal development. We go into it sometimes ill-prepared to handle what we're about to face, but we can come out for it stronger with a greater appreciation for what we can overcome. This can help us embrace those challenges that are right in front of us instead of trying to run away from them. One thing's for sure, whether we acknowledge those rough periods that we're going through or not, they're still going to be present. We could try to ignore them and pretend like it's not there, but really, what good does that do? It's just delaying it for something later on and possibly could be a much bigger problem to deal with the longer we put it off. It's almost like you're taking off the bandage that's been on for quite some time, where easing, trying to rip it off slowly, can actually be more painful as opposed to quickly ripping it off one time where you could feel that sharp pain, but eventually it's going to wear off. So in one case, it's about slowly feeling that pain as opposed to just quickly feeling it. Taking on that sharper sense gives you the ability to get over it quicker. It's that initial sense of shock that scares us more than what we're actually experiencing. So those rough periods that we go through may not be something we look forward to, but it can serve us well if we know how to handle it and handle ourselves well. And as you go through all these challenges that you face, look towards how you want to handle yourself in these times. Having that predetermined way of how you're going to behave, what action you're going to take, is a great game plan to form. Thinking through these types of things helps you reflect on the pitfalls that you need to avoid so you're not dwelling on what happened, and knowing how you want to conduct yourself in times of being vulnerable can help you navigate your way to a better place. Some common pitfalls that I know I face is when things aren't going my way or things are just getting rough. There's times where I'll be overcritical of myself, where I say, I should have done this, I should have known that, and I get frustrated with myself. To counter this, I will go over a scenario where I remind myself that no matter what happens, I need to stay composed and manage my emotions. This helps me to respond effectively and not merely react. And this actually helps me set the tone so I'm progressively working towards what I've learned. How am I going to apply that going forward? And what solutions that I come up with to get me out of the situation that I'm in? This gives me the proper course on where to steer my thinking and my behaviors to. So as you start to do this, obviously the beginning stages, you're going to have those times where you stumble and you fall short of how you told yourself you're going to behave and act. Aim to at least catch yourself when you fall short, because that means you're becoming more aware of the pitfalls that you might be falling into. Then you'll progressively work your way up to actually following through on that game plan that you set for yourself. And then it just becomes second nature to you. Whatever tough times that you're going through, it's important to be honest with yourself by finding that middle ground to not be too overcritical or too underwhelming to the importance of the situation that you're in. We just got to remind ourselves things are never as good or as bad as they seem. They're right in the middle. To help you gain an objective view to find that middle ground, try writing out how good you think it is and how bad you think it is. And then you can see the difference between the two and average them out to find that magnitude that you're probably facing. This could be a rough patch professionally or personally where things are not coming together as you expected. The worst case scenario would be saying that it has been a complete failure and it's best to give up on the things because there's no way to correct them. The best case scenario would be that things work itself out without the need for any type of change. The scenario in between the worst and the best case is that change is needed to correct things, and this can be the difference in making headway for the better. Maybe one thing might not be the difference, but a cumulative effort of all those changes add up to get you back on track. Sometimes it's about resetting the expectations that we have, where in our minds it becomes all about the absolutes, that it must be done this way or it's not going to work out. And these rough periods are there to remind us that it's not just our way or the highway, but we got to take things as they come and adapt to them to make it work for us. Who we are and the things in our lives will always change, and these tough times that we go through can signal the end of a certain chapter, but the beginning of something new. Change can be difficult at times, but it's part of life that we're all going to have to deal with. When we're forced to change and adapt, it can be a lot harder than choosing to do so. Sometimes we can't bend things to the way we want them to, so we have to be able to work with what we have and make the best of our situations. The rough periods that we go through involve change of how things play out, change from expectations, but change does not always mean tough times. So the better that you can embrace when change occurs, the better you set yourself up for those challenging periods that will come. Those difficult moments or stretches that we all experience is telling us action is needed to get us moving. It's signaling to us that it needs our attention so we can correct things. And while periods of transition can be trying at times, where it hurts our confidence and dissuades our hope for what could be, we just have to remind ourselves that they're merely moments in time, and eventually we can get through them if we're committed to finding solutions to what we're facing. As you go through them, give yourself the time and the space to process what you're going through so you can better understand what's going on. This period helps you reflect on what led to this point and what you can do about it. Look to those high quality people in your life for support, as you're not alone in what you're up against. You might be surprised, but there are many other people going through difficult times, and see if you can form connections with them, as leaning on each other can bring about a breath of freshness, knowing that you can relate with others that helps you work through those down days. Find out what you want going forward by getting to a calm state mentally where you can rationalize how you're going to make things happen. This gives you the chance to play things out so you're better prepared to execute on them. Come to view these times as an opportunity for something much greater, and you'll be better for it. How you handle yourself and the times that you're in speaks volumes and is a precursor for how well you're going to navigate future obstacles. Remember, tough times are a natural part of what we're all going to face, but we need to be patient with ourselves, as there will be moments where it does feel very difficult. So just work your way through it, be patient, and allow yourself to work through those issues that you're going through. Well, it's that time to wrap things up again. I hope you all enjoyed this podcast. If you're interested in more topics like this, become a Thriving Minds member at www.thrivingminds.live. We have a monthly meeting for members where we talk openly about topics like this to help us be stronger together. All right, until next time.